Welcome to Seeing Green Solutions for Our Daily Lives, the podcast where we spotlight the brands, ideas, and people making it easier to live sustainably every day. Today's episode is part of our Spotlight series, a deep dive into one of our Seeing Green Solutionists of the day. And now, today's solution.
Welcome to the Seeing Green Spotlight series. This is where we take a closer look at our Seeing Green Solutionist of the day, exploring the real solutions they offer to help us all live, well, healthier and greener lives day to day. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into an area of sustainable living that might not immediately spring to mind for everyone. We're talking about the world of adult beverages, spirits, wine, beer. There's actually a fascinating and often overlooked environmental side to it all. Now, just a quick but important note before we really get started, our discussion today does touch on alcoholic beverages. So we just kindly remind all listeners, please be of legal drinking age in your location, and of course, please always drink responsibly. Okay, so when we think about sustainability, right, our minds often go to like organic food or maybe eco-friendly fashion, electric cars perhaps. But how often do we really pause to consider the footprint of what's in our glass? It turns out the spirits industry specifically presents this really complex web of challenges, but also opportunities for sustainability. Think about it from the ingredients themselves, how they're grown, how they're processed, bottled, even shipped. A lot of brands are making claims these days, but what does genuine integrated eco-consciousness actually look like in practice? Well, our solutionist of the day, Gray Whale Gin, offers a really compelling answer here. They seem to be a brand that's woven these eco-conscious practices right into their core identity. They've got this powerful narrative rooted in nature, but also, crucially, tangible action. So we're going to explore how they're making a difference, maybe even offering a kind of blueprint for sustainability in an industry that, let's be honest, often flies under the green radar.
Yeah, you've really hit on something important there. What's fascinating, I think, is just how many layers, how many touch points there are for sustainability, even in something like, a bottle of gin.
Right. It seems simple, but it's not.
Not at all. Every single step matters. From the botanicals, those natural ingredients, giving gin its flavor, how they're grown, where they're sourced, to the energy used in distillation, the water needed, and then, the packaging and the waste at the end. It all adds up to an environmental footprint. And Gray Whale Gin, from what we've seen, they seem to have approached this really holistically. They've integrated this sustainable thinking right from the very beginning, from the initial idea, all the way through to the bottle on the shelf.
Okay, so let's unpack that journey. Let's start right at the beginning. Gray Whale Gin, founded back in 2016 by Jan and Marsh Mokhtari. They operate out of the Golden State Distillery in California. And their mission, it seems, was clear right from the start. Craft really great spirits inspired by California, use local ingredients, and at the same time, actively support environmental causes. But it's the story behind it, the inspiration, that really sets the stage for their commitment, doesn't it?
It really does.
One thing I found just incredibly compelling when we were looking into this was how deeply tied their brand identity is to nature. I mean, the whole Gray Whale Gin brand, its essence, its soul, if you like, is inspired by the California gray whale.
That epic journey.
Exactly. Imagine this creature making this incredible 12,000-mile trip every year along the Pacific coast, all the way from Baja way up to the Arctic.
It's amazing.
It's this journey of resilience, of natural cycles. And that journey directly informs everything they do. It's not just a pretty picture on the bottle. It's practically their operating manual.
That is such a powerful narrative. And it brings up a really important question, which is, how does that big, beautiful inspiration actually translate into, real, tangible, sustainable practices? Because, in the world of branding, it's one thing to have a great story. But the real test is how that story drives actual environmental action. For Gray Whale Gin, it feels like this connection isn't just marketing fluff. It genuinely shapes their whole philosophy around sourcing ingredients. They've basically traced the whale's path, but through flavors.
That commitment to sourcing along the migration route is so unique. You said they literally taste their way along the coast. And it's true. So many of their botanicals, those herbs, spices, fruits that give gin its character, are either sustainably foraged, like picked from the wild responsibly, or sourced from farms right along that huge 12,000-mile route.
It's like a culinary map of the migration.
Exactly. Could you maybe walk us through some of those specific California flavors and maybe explain why this super local, sometimes wild foraged approach is such a big deal in the spirits world?
Absolutely. Yeah, looking at their botanical list, it really does read like a trip through California's ecosystems. It's quite something. You've got hand-zested limes coming from Temecula, so they're thinking about responsible orchards there. Fresh mint, actually hand-picked up in Santa Cruz, so that speaks to, smaller scale local farming.
Right.
Almonds harvested from the Capay Valley, that's a classic California agricultural area, chosen for quality and presumably the farm's practices. Then you get into the really wild stuff. Wild foraged juniper berries from Big Sur.
Ah, the key gin ingredients.
Exactly. And Big Sur, that's a spot where the founders got their inspiration, and it's right on that whale migration path, so super significant.
Yeah.
Then there's fir from a tree farm in Sonoma Valley, and this is interesting, it's sustainably harvested from living trees.
Wait, from living trees? How does that work?
Yeah, so instead of cutting down the whole tree, they're carefully pruning branches and then deneedling them by hand. That means the tree keeps living, keeps growing. It's a much more eco-friendly approach than just clearing timber.
That's incredible. Very different.
Very different. And finally, they use kombu sea kelp, which is wild harvested from the Mendocino coast. It's a type of seaweed, gives this unique sort of savory, umami, almost ocean-like note to the gin. And again, wild harvested responsibly to protect that marine biodiversity.
Wow.
So what really stands out here is the sheer intentionality. They're not just sourcing locally, which is good for cutting down transport miles, obviously. They're sourcing sustainably. And in some cases, wild foraging these specific ingredients, like the juniper and the kombu, this minimizes their transport footprint, yes, but it also actively supports the local ecosystems, it supports biodiversity, it creates this really direct link between their story and their actions. And honestly, this approach is pretty rare in the spirits industry, which often relies on, big global commodity markets for botanicals. It shows a real commitment that probably costs more and involves trickier logistics.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
It really speaks to the founder's background, apparently in storytelling and design. They've crafted something that's just deeply rooted in a specific place and a specific purpose.
That's a really fascinating insight. It does make you wonder about the difficulties, though. What are some of the biggest hurdles for a brand like Gray Whale Gin when they commit to this hyper-local, wild forage model, especially as they grow? It can't be easy.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's far from easy. I'd say the main challenges are probably consistency and scalability.
Makes sense.
Wild foraging, just by its nature, it depends on environmental factors, right? Weather, natural growth patterns, even regulations about where and how much you can forage. So the amount you can get might fluctuate year to year, ensuring a consistent supply for a brand that's hopefully growing.
Yeah.
Well, that takes really careful planning. It requires building deep relationships with those local foragers and farmers, and probably, being willing to adapt sometimes. Traditional gin making often aims for absolute uniformity, maximum efficiency, using these huge standardized suppliers. Gray Whale Gin's approach clearly prioritizes ecological integrity and unique flavors over those typical economies of scale.
Which is a conscious choice.
Definitely a conscious and likely more expensive choice. It also demands a really solid understanding of sustainable harvesting, making sure they're not taking too much, not damaging the resource for the future. It's kind of a playbook for genuinely baking environmental ethics into the product itself, not just sprinkling it on top later.
So we've talked a lot about what goes into the gin, the incredible effort in sourcing those botanicals. But what about the sort of less visible parts of their operation? Specifically, how does this commitment carry through to the production process itself? And then what about the actual vessel, the packaging that holds the sustainable spirit?
That's a great question, because the production stage, the actual distilling, that's where a lot of a distillery's environmental impact happens. Energy use, water use.
Right.
Now, the specifics for Golden State Distillery, where they make Gray Whale, aren't fully detailed in what we looked at. But given their whole philosophy, we can make some educated guesses. A truly eco-conscious distillery would be looking hard at a few key things. First, energy efficiency. Using modern stills, optimizing how they heat and cool things, maybe using renewable energy like solar or buying renewable energy credits.
Okay.
Second, water conservation. Distilling uses a lot of water. So sustainable places often use things like closed-loop cooling systems to recycle water, cutting down consumption massively, and treating their wastewater properly. Definitely. And third is waste reduction. What do they do with the leftover botanicals after distillation? Ideally, composting them, maybe even giving them to local farms for animal feed. Turning waste into something useful. Given Grey Whale Gin's overall mission, it seems highly likely they're employing strong practices in these areas to match their sourcing and packaging efforts. It really completes that picture, you know? Thinking about the impact from the farm right through to the finished glass.
That level of thinking really does elevate things. Okay, so speaking of the glass, let's talk about the bottle. Their philosophy extends right to the presentation and even disposal. What's the deal with the packaging and its impact once the gin actually leaves the distillery?
Yeah, the thoughtfulness definitely continues right onto the bottle. It's that really distinctive sky blue bottle, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just about looking good. Every part seems considered. It's made with organic paint. That means fewer harmful chemicals in its production, and eventually when it breaks down or gets recycled.
Oh, interesting. Organic paint.
Yeah, and it uses a biodegradable cork. So they're directly tackling that packaging and waste issue we talked about. It significantly cuts down the environmental hit of the product after it's bought. You know, think about the usual plastic stoppers or synthetic paints you often see. Grey Whale Gin is choosing alternatives that minimize those persistent pollutants. It shows they're really thinking about the product's entire life, from cradle to, well, hopefully, compost or recycling bin.
It really is impressive seeing a brand go beyond just the product and the packaging to actually champion broader environmental causes too. Grey Whale Gin isn't just selling gin. It feels like they're actively trying to contribute to the planet's health through some pretty significant partnerships and pledges.
Exactly. And this is where their commitment really scales up to have a global impact. Their main partnership is with Oceana.
Right, a major player in ocean conservation.
A huge player. Oceana is this fantastic nonprofit dedicated to protecting and restoring the world's oceans. They don't just research, they actively campaign. They work against destructive fishing, they push for policies to tackle plastic pollution, they work to restore crucial coastal habitats like coral reefs and mangroves.
Vital work.
Absolutely vital. Their whole goal is to make our oceans as healthy and abundant as they used to be, creating the right environment for marine life, including, of course, the California gray whale to survive and really thrive. And Grey Whale Gin gives a portion of the proceeds directly to Oceana. So effectively, every bottle bought becomes a small contribution to ocean conservation.
That's a powerful connection for consumers.
It really is. It resonates with people who are increasingly looking for brands that share their values.
Yeah.
It turns a simple purchase into like a mini statement of support for a healthier planet.
And then connecting this to that broader idea of corporate responsibility, they're also a member of 1% for the Planet, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
For anyone unfamiliar, that's a global movement getting businesses and individuals to support environmental solutions. And Grey Whale Gin pledges a full 1% of all their sales to environmental causes. Not just profits, but sales.
And that distinction is really critical. Pledging 1% of sales, of gross revenue, means they contribute that amount regardless of their profit margin that year.
Right. It's a guaranteed contribution.
Exactly. It ensures this consistent, substantial flow of money to environmental nonprofits. So you take all of this together, the meticulous sustainable sourcing, the responsible harvesting, the thoughtful eco-friendly packaging, and then this significant financial support for ocean conservation through Oceana and broader causes via 1% for the planet. It really showcases Grey Whale Gin as more than just a craft spirit. They really embody that idea of a gin for good. They're capturing the essence of the California coast, the spirit of that whale's journey, but they're also actively championing a more sustainable future for the very oceans and wildlife that inspired them in the first place. It's just a really powerful example of how a business can genuinely weave its values into every single thing it does, proving that, commerce and conservation really can and probably should go hand in hand.
This deep dive into Grey Whale Gin, it's really shed light on just how much can go into creating a truly sustainable product, especially maybe in an industry like spirits, where we don't always think about eco-consciousness first. It shows that every choice matters, doesn't it? From the tiniest botanical they pick to the biggest partnership they make, it all adds up to the brand's overall impact. And maybe for you, listening, it makes you think a bit differently about the next bottle you might choose, or perhaps inspires you to dig a little deeper into the supply chains of other things you buy. It's really a testament to the idea that authenticity, that real purpose, can drive innovation and create something truly special.
To learn more about Grey Whale Gin, you can visit them at www.greywhalegin.com. And remember, please drink responsibly. Interested in finding more brands and innovators dedicated to creating a greener, more sustainable world? Visit the Seeing Green website to see more trailblazers making significant strides in promoting eco-friendly living through innovative products, solutions, and practices. That's online at www.seeinggreen.eco. And follow us at Seeing Green Eco across social media channels. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Seeing Green Spotlight series.